still remember that moment as vividly as if it had just happened this morning. My hands trembled as I held the pregnancy test, the two pink lines showing clearly, impossible to mistake. My heart raced, my breath quickened as if I had just sprinted across the entire block. I looked down at my belly, still flat. But I knew a tiny life had already begun to take root inside, a childhood dream. To be a mother, to hold a tiny being in my arms, was becoming reality. I flung open the bathroom door, my hand gripping the test like I was holding a winning lottery ticket. "Logan!" I called out, my voice breaking with emotion. "Come here, I have something important." Logan was sitting on the sofa, eyes glued to his phone screen. He glanced up, annoyed at being interrupted. His gaze flicked over the pregnancy test and went right back to his phone. "Okay," he said, his voice flat and cold, like I had just told him we were out of milk. I stood frozen. The moment I had imagined would be full of laughter, happy tears, and tight hugs was filled instead with a cold, aching silence. "Aren't you happy?" I asked, my voice soft like the breeze slipping through a cracked window. Logan shrugged, his eyes never leaving the screen. "Yeah, happy. I'm just thinking, this is big. Give me some time to think." I bit my lip to stop the tears that were about to spill. I told myself maybe he was just shocked, maybe he needed time for it to sink in, but deep down a cold uncertainty crept in, like winter air sneaking through a drafty door. That night I barely slept. Lying next to Logan, I listened to his steady breathing while I stared at the ceiling, my mind in turmoil. I pictured us planning for the baby together, choosing names, picking out baby clothes, sketching out the nursery. But it was all just in my head. Logan lay there, more distant than ever. The next morning I made breakfast, placing his favorite sunny-side-up eggs in front of him. I wanted to bring it up again, to ask him to plan for our first child. But he ate while scrolling through his phone, never once looking at me. I steadied myself before speaking, careful not to let my voice shake. "I think we should schedule a prenatal appointment. What do you think?" Logan paused for about 3 seconds, then gave a half-hearted smile. "You go ahead and schedule it. I'm too busy. Not sure I can make it." His words hit me like a bucket of ice water poured over my heart. I forced a small smile and whispered, "It's okay. I'll handle it." Inside, a part of my hope shattered. I had thought this moment would be the start of a loving journey, but reality was nothing like that. I cradled my belly, feeling the warmth of the life inside, and silently promised, "It's okay, baby. Mommy will try her best for you." From that day, I stopped bringing up the pregnancy with Logan. I waited for a look of concern, a question, but all I got was silence. Every day, I told myself he would change, that he would realize the miracle happening in our little family. But his indifference became clearer with each passing day. And I once, filled with happiness, began learning how to protect that joy just for myself. Because I understood that if I didn't, no one else would. The months that followed passed in a heavy silence I couldn't break. I researched vaccination schedules, pregnancy nutrition plans, and gentle exercises on my own. Each night after Logan fell asleep, I sat at the table, carefully jotting down notes in a small blue notebook I'd bought at the local bookstore. I'd taped a tiny ultrasound photo to the cover, hoping it would keep me motivated. I tried once more to share the joy with Logan. One evening, as he walked in the door, I had prepared a cozy dinner with candles and his favorite beef stew. On the table was a small gift box holding a pair of pure white baby shoes. "I think it's time we take some photos to announce the news," I said gently, my heart full of worry. Logan looked at me for a few seconds, glanced at the shoes, and turned back to his emails. "Eva, don't make a big deal out of this. It's only been a few weeks. Let's just take it slow." I swallowed my disappointment, trying to smile, though it felt forced even to me. Maybe he was just tired from work. Maybe I was being too sensitive. On the day of my first prenatal visit, I prepared carefully. I chose a soft, loose dress, tied my hair back neatly, and packed snacks and water for Logan, knowing he gets hungry during long waits. But then, I got a simple text. "Got stuck in a meeting. You go ahead." The waiting room was filled with couples holding hands, laughing together as they waited to hear their baby's heartbeat. I sat quietly in a corner, fingers tracing the first ultrasound photo the doctor had just printed. The tiny heartbeat echoed in the room. And I cried. Not from pure happiness, but because the one person I wanted to share that moment with wasn't there. Back home, I placed the ultrasound photo on the dining table, waiting for Logan. He came home late, glanced at the picture, then let it slip into the pile of junk mail without a word. Logan's family wasn't any better. Every time I visited his mother, Kayla would glance at me with that critical look and say, "You look exhausted. Can you even take care of yourself, let alone a baby?" Logan's sister Megan would casually remark, "Probably just the hormones, right? You're so sensitive about everything." Even my own mother, whom I had hoped would embrace this news, was no different. She'd call to check in, but when I quietly mentioned my worries, the nausea, the sleepless nights, she only chuckled. When I had 3 kids, I didn't even have time to complain. "Don't make such a fuss." Through it all, only Leela, my best friend from college, made me feel like I wasn't alone. When she heard I'd gone to the doctor by myself, she didn't ask much. She just texted, "I'm picking you up tomorrow morning. If no one's with you, I will be." True to her word, the next morning Lila showed up at my door with a warm egg sandwich and a soy milk. "Eat up, or you'll pass out, and who'll help you then?" she said, smiling with a warmth I hadn't seen from anyone else in so long. At every appointment after that, Lila found time to be there. She jotted down the doctor's advice, bought little things I needed. One morning, after I'd spent the night aching from back pain, Lila showed up with essential oils and a long body pillow she'd ordered online. "You don't have to do all this," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "But I want to. You and the baby matter to me," Lila simply said, then pulled me into a tight hug. Every time I returned home, I felt the distance between me and Logan grow wider. He buried himself deeper in work, and when he did come home, the house felt just as cold as his office. Inside me, the joy of becoming a mother was still there, but it was surrounded by a hollow loneliness only I seemed to feel, and deep down, I began to fear that my journey into motherhood would always be a journey walked alone. The pain came suddenly, just before midnight. I woke with the sensation of a huge wave crashing through my lower abdomen, rolling and gripping every nerve. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe deeply just as the doctor had instructed in prenatal class. But minutes later, a second wave hit, sharper and more intense, forcing me to sit up with both hands bracing against the bed. "Logan?" I called softly, voice trembling, my hand gently shaking his shoulder. He turned over, eyes still shut, sighing like I had pulled him from a pleasant dream. "What is it, Eva? It's not even morning yet." "I think I'm in labor. The pain is bad. The contractions are about 10 minutes apart." Logan frowned slightly, still half asleep. "It's the first baby. It'll take forever. Just rest. We'll figure it out in the morning." I wanted to scream, to shake him fully awake, but another contraction crashed in, leaving me breathless. I bent over, hands gripping my stomach, tears rolling down from both pain and heartache. The moment the contraction eased, I searched his face, still hoping he'd sense how serious it was. But Logan had turned his back and pulled the blanket over his head. I tried to stay calm and picked up my phone to text Lila, "I think it's time. Can you help me?" I clutched the phone after sending it, hoping. I also messaged Logan's mom, his sister Megan, and my own mother. All remained silent. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. I snatched it up, only to see a message from Logan, but not meant for me. He had sent it to someone else by mistake. "Game's intense. Went into overtime." Followed by a basketball emoji and a beer mug. My hands shook. A piece of me cracked inside. Then the doorbell rang, like a miracle in the middle of a storm. Leela stood there, hair a mess, coat soaked with rain. "Let's go," she said, no complaints, just a look of concern in her eyes. I clung to her arm step by step down the stairs. The pain came faster now, every contraction tearing through me. Outside, the rain poured down in sheets, wind howling through the trees. Leela helped me into the car, slammed the door and jumped into the driver's seat. "Where's Logan?" she asked, but after seeing my face, she didn't ask again. On the way to the hospital, I gripped the edge of the seat, my tears mixing with the sound of rain. The streetlights streaked past the window like blurred rays of light. I didn't know if I was crying from pain, from fear, or from the growing sense of loneliness in my heart. At the hospital gate, Lila jumped out, opened the door for me, and called for help. I was wheeled into the delivery room as thunder rumbled outside. "Where's your husband?" a nurse asked gently. "He's busy," I replied, my voice catching. Lila squeezed my hand, her eyes filled with compassion. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." The hours that followed were a blur of exhaustion and pain. I lost count of the contractions. All I knew was that with each one I gripped Lila's hand tightly, clinging to whatever strength I had left. Each time the door opened, I looked up, hoping it would be Logan, but it was always just a doctor, a nurse, or a hospital worker hurrying in and out. At one point, when the pain eased for a moment, I looked at Lila and whispered, "You know, I never thought giving birth could feel this lonely." Lila leaned down, brushing the sweat-soaked hair from my forehead. "Ava, you're not alone. I'm here. And your son? He's fighting right alongside you." Her words lit a spark in my heart, like a small flame in the darkness. The rain outside still poured heavily, but I knew that no matter how violent the storm was, I wasn't afraid anymore. Morning light trickled through the hospital window, casting shimmering rays across the recovery room. I lay silently on the bed, still catching my breath after over 10 hours of labor. Resting on my chest was my newborn son, his soft, warm skin like a tiny flame, warming my heart in the stillness of the room. Vila sat beside me, eyes red from worry and emotion. Her hand found my hair, warm and steady, grounding me as I looked at my son. Just as I was about to thank her for everything, the door creaked open. A nurse stepped in, holding a small silver box. She placed it on the table next to my bed, her voice gentle but curious. "Miss Eva, someone sent this box. I was told very specifically to deliver it only if you gave birth without your husband or family present. And that appears to be the case." My eyes settled on the box, its silver sheen catching the morning light. It was small enough to fit in the palm of my hand, its surface gleaming in the morning light. A tiny brass lock sparkled at its side, and attached was a small note. "Henderson and Wood, attorneys for Mr. Frank Carter." My heart raced. My father's name. He had passed away suddenly from a stroke 8 months ago. "My father?" I gasped, voice choked. The nurse nodded, left the box, and quietly exited, leaving me and Lila alone. Lila carefully removed the small key tied to a string around the box and handed it to me. I took it with trembling hands. A soft click echoed as the lock popped open. Inside, nestled in deep navy velvet, was a thick envelope sealed with red wax, bearing a crest I recognized instantly. My father's signet ring. I drew in a deep breath, my hands shaking as I broke the seal. The first paper was a handwritten letter in my father's script. Strong, though slightly unsteady from illness. "To Eva, my beloved daughter. If you're reading this, then my deepest fear has come true. You gave birth alone, surrounded by the coldness of those who should have protected and loved you." I couldn't hold back the hot tears falling, blurring the ink on the page. "I saw it long ago, Eva. The way Logan looked at you. The attitude of his family whenever your name or the baby was mentioned. I hoped I was wrong. But if you had to go through childbirth alone, then you deserve to be protected, to be loved, and to be free." Her fingers tightened around mine, anchoring me without a word. I turned to the next page, a list of assets and clearly written instructions. The house at 115 Maple Lane valued at $1.3 million already in my name. The deed and keys were with the law office. 15% ownership in Clean Leaf, a cosmetics company, with an annual profit of around $75,000 deposited directly into my personal account. A $250,000 trust for my son, to be used once he turns 18, intended for education or starting a business. I read it over and over, barely believing my eyes. My father had prepared everything. The last page hit me hardest. "Logan, your mother, Logan's family, anyone who abandoned you during childbirth, is excluded from all rights and assets. Everything is reserved solely for you and the baby." Lila whispered with admiration. "Your dad really made sure of everything." I clutched the letter to my chest, tears pouring down like I'd never cried before. But these weren't tears of shame. They were tears of recognition, of being protected, of being loved. In that moment, I knew my father, even in death, was still here, holding me and my son with everything he had. And I, after months of feeling utterly alone, no longer felt alone at all. As I sat there, stunned, holding my father's letter to my heart like the last warmth he left behind, Lila leaned down, her eyes catching something. "Eva, look at this," Lila said softly, voice filled with surprise. I looked where she pointed. Beneath the deep blue velvet lining of the silver box, there was a faint seam I hadn't noticed. With careful fingers, Lila peeled the fabric back, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a thin white envelope. No sender written on it, only a single line. "For Eva, when the truth must come to light." My heart pounded, my hands trembled as I opened the envelope and pulled out a thick stack of crisp papers. Printouts of text message conversations. The sender, recipient, and timestamps were all clearly displayed. I flipped through the pages quickly, my eyes stinging with disbelief as I read. "Logan, I don't care how sensitive she is. As long as I can push her to her limit, it's all good. Birkin bag. She's always so dramatic. Let her figure things out on her own. She'll get what's coming. Okay, the sooner she realizes she's not cut out to be a mom, the better. Logan, you need to get out of this mess before it's too late." "Logan, I know. Thanks, everyone. I just hope she breaks before the baby arrives. Makes everything easier in the long run." I couldn't believe what I was reading. These weren't heat-of-the-moment words. This was a plan. A cold, calculated consensus to push me into despair so Logan could walk away clean. Lila sat quietly, still holding the stack of papers, as if afraid I wasn't strong enough to face the truth. "Your dad saw all of it, Eva. He didn't just protect your assets. He left you the proof you'd need to protect yourself." I remained still, unable to move as the weight of it all sank in. "Help me. I need to be ready to face them." The next afternoon, as I sat holding my son in the hospital room, Logan walked in. He was neatly dressed, like he'd just left the office, holding a bouquet of bright red roses and wearing a forced smile. Behind him, Megan entered, awkwardly juggling a pile of gift bags. "Eva, I'm sorry I couldn't be there that night. You know how work gets. Everything hit at once," Logan said, placing the flowers on the table, eyes scanning my reaction. "Right. Work is very important," I replied, my voice oddly calm as I looked him straight in the eye. Megan forced a laugh. "I brought a few things for the baby. You're not mad at us, right?" I gave a slight nod, then turned to Lila. "Can you hand me the papers?" Without a word, Lila placed the printouts on the table, right in front of Logan and Megan. "I think you two should read these before saying anything else." Logan frowned and flipped through a few pages. His expression shifted from confusion to pale panic. His eyes widened in horror as the messages stared back at him. Megan leaned in, her face draining of color, her lips parting but no words coming out. This isn't what I meant. These must be edited," Logan stammered, sweat beginning to form on his forehead. "I wish they were fake, Logan. I wish what I read wasn't something the man I once trusted said behind my back." My voice was hoarse, but every word cut through the thick, suffocating silence. Megan leaned forward, voice trembling. "Eva, we just wanted to ease the pressure on him. We didn't mean any harm." I looked her dead in the eye, a sad smile on my lips. "No harm? When you planned how to push me to the edge? When you hoped I'd collapse so Logan could ditch his responsibility? That's your version of no harm?" Logan gripped the papers, his voice almost pleading. "Eva, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. But we're family. We can move past this, can't we?" I picked up my son, held him close to my chest, my gaze colder than ever. "Family? Family doesn't push their own into despair. Family doesn't hope the ones they love fall apart just to ease their own burden. You severed that bond long ago." Silence filled the room. Logan let go, and the stack of papers fell to the floor, pages scattering, exposing every raw truth. That morning, as sunlight streamed through the hospital window, I gently cradled my son, his cheek pressed against my chest, his breath steady and warm like a small flame melting the cold still clinging to my heart. Logan stood slumped in the corner, his eyes vacant, no trace of pride or pretense left. Megan sat collapsed on a chair, her face buried in her hands, trying to hide from the harsh truth they helped create. I wore the cream-colored dress Lila had brought, smoothed my hair and draped a light scarf over my shoulders. When Lila entered, she gave me a quiet nod, her eyes warm but resolute. "Let's go, Eva," she said gently but firmly. My eyes lingered on Logan and Megan, faces once familiar, now distant echoes of people I no longer knew. "My son and I are going home. My home. This is over." Logan opened his mouth to speak, then stopped, his eyes drifting away, unable to meet mine. Lila picked up the bag, opened the door. I carried my son through the hospital doorway, like walking out of the darkest chapter of my life. The car hummed along the road toward the new house, my father's house. It wasn't just shelter. It was a symbol of a new beginning, one I would own. The house appeared behind rows of spring maples, with a red-tiled roof and wide porch, just like the one I used to dream of, sitting on it with my baby in my arms, watching the sunset. "Welcome home, you two," Lila smiled, her eyes glowing with real joy. In the days that followed, I lived in a peace I once thought unreachable. By day, I strolled the garden with my baby, listened to birdsong, breathed in the scent of freshly cut grass. At night, in the softly painted blue room my father once chose for me, I lulled my son to sleep, with gentle melodies my own mother used to sing, though she'd never once asked about her grandchild. Lila stayed by my side, guiding me through motherhood, from changing diapers to nursing to rocking him during sleepless nights. She was the solid shoulder I never thought I'd need so much. But peace doesn't mean the world outside went quiet. My phone buzzed constantly with missed calls and messages from Logan and Megan. "Logan, Eva, I know I messed up. Please answer me. I want to see our son." "Megan, please don't stay mad at me. Everyone's sorry. Just give us a chance." Day after day, their words swung from pleading to angry, then back to regretful. But I stayed silent. I knew, if I opened that door again, I'd only hurt myself. One evening, I was sitting in the living room, watching my son sleep soundly in his bassinet, when Lila brought me a cup of hot tea. She sat beside me, quiet for a moment, then whispered, "You're doing amazing, Eva. You're strong. Don't let anyone make you forget that." A quiet warmth settled over me as I watched the soft glow of the streetlights spill across the walls. I had found peace again. Logan and his family. They remained lost in the echo of their own regrets, shut out by the door they slammed when I needed them most. And me? I didn't look back anymore. Every breath my son took, every drowsy smile in his sleep, that was my reason to keep going. In the days after returning to the home that rightfully belonged to my son, the air inside it changed completely. Logan and Megan began their little performance, hoping I'd be moved. Logan suddenly became the domestic man, up early, brewing coffee, sweeping the yard, doing laundry without being asked. Megan buzzed around the living room, rearranging shelves, cleaning photo frames, her eyes darting toward me, waiting for a thank you, or even a nod. But I didn't pay attention. To me it was just a clumsy mask over late-blooming guilt. I focused on my son, on the home I was building. Each morning, sunlight streamed through the nursery window, landing on his sweet, rosy face. I carried him to the porch, breathing in the fresh air I had longed for. James grew each day, surrounded by the love and calm I nurtured myself, without judgmental stares or patronizing words from people who once dismissed me. I was gently rocking James on the wooden swing when the hum of an approaching engine broke the quiet. The door opened, and Penelope, Logan's mother, stepped out. She wore a tailored suit, her hair neatly pinned up, her face still carrying that unmistakable air of superiority. Penelope walked in, her heels clicking against the patio stones. She stopped in front of me, her eyes passing briefly over James before settling on mine. "Eva," she began, her tone softer but still laced with condescension, "I think it's time you gave the family another chance for the baby's sake." I didn't stand. I looked her in the eye and replied, voice calm, each word clear as a bell. "This isn't a performance." Penelope froze for a second, clearly not expecting that. She opened her mouth again, then shook her head and walked away without another word. She never came back. Logan and Megan still hovered around, trying to prove remorse, but I no longer cared. Day by day, James thrived in our sunlit home, the one my father had painstakingly prepared to protect us. I didn't need anyone to validate my worth. Every smile from my son, every tiny step on the wooden porch, every warm hug reminded me I was doing exactly what a mother should. I no longer feared judgment. I didn't need anyone's permission to be happy. And I knew, from now on my son would grow up in a world where he'd understand just how strong his mother had to be, to shield them both from people who never deserved that trust. One afternoon as I walked James into the garden, a soft breeze carried the scent of roses my father once planted. I looked up at the clear blue sky, my heart light. The past was behind me, the future lay ahead. And I, with my son in my arms, was ready to welcome it. With all the strength and hope I had, what do you think of Ava's story and her powerful journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful stories about family and life.